Ricky and Troy had become known as powerful heroes across the world, and their incredible powers had earned them the admiration and gratitude of people everywhere. But their newfound fame was about to attract a new threat to Earth. A super sentient being from another planet had heard about Ricky and Troy's powers and had set his sights on absorbing them for himself. Back on Earth, Troy was at his helm training himself, pushing his powers to new heights, while Ricky was at his house studying and preparing for his next adventure. Suddenly, the news channels began to report on an invasion. The being had sent his forces to Earth to capture Ricky and Troy and absorb their powers. The two heroes watched the news in shock and realized that they had to act quickly to protect their planet. Without hesitation, Ricky decided to meet with Troy at his house. They knew that their combined powers were stronger than any one of them alone, and they needed to work together to face this new threat. As they arrived at Troy's house, they could sense that the danger was imminent. The skies had turned dark, and the streets were filled with chaos and destruction. The being's forces were everywhere, wreaking havoc on the city. Ricky and Troy quickly came up with a plan. They would use their powers to draw the being's forces away from the populated areas and engage them in battle in a remote location. They took to the skies and found the being's flagship, a massive spacecraft, hovering above the city. The being had been expecting them, and he sent his most powerful warriors to capture them. But Ricky and Troy were not afraid. They had faced many challenges before and knew that they could overcome this one too. They unleashed their powers, creating a massive shockwave that knocked the warriors off their feet. The battle was intense, with blasts of energy and shockwaves shaking the very foundations of the ship. But Ricky and Troy were determined to emerge victorious. As they fought on, they realized that the being himself was nowhere to be seen. They had been fighting his minions, but the being himself was still out there, waiting to absorb their powers. Just as they were about to finish off the last of the minions, the being himself appeared. He was massive, with glowing eyes and an aura of power that dwarfed even Ricky and Troy's combined strength. The being attacked them with all his might, his massive fists pounding the ground with a force that could shatter mountains. But Ricky and Troy refused to give up. They channeled all their energy into a final attack, a massive blast of power that lit up the sky and shook the very ground beneath their feet. The being was caught off guard, and he was overwhelmed by the sheer force of the blast. He staggered backward, and for a moment, it seemed like he might fall. But then, something strange happened. The being's body began to absorb the energy of the blast, and he started to grow in size and power. Ricky and Troy watched in horror as the being became larger and more powerful than ever before. They knew that they had to act quickly. They channeled all their energy into a final attack, a massive shockwave that shook the very foundations of the ship. The shockwave was so powerful that it shattered the being's body into 1,000,000 pieces, and the pieces were scattered across the galaxy. Ricky and Troy collapsed to the ground, exhausted but triumphant. They had saved Earth once again, and their powers had proven to be stronger than even the most powerful of foes. But they knew that their work was far from over. There were still dangers out there, waiting to threaten the world.